If you're new here, my name is Paige. I'm the Chief Pixel Pusher and Paintbrusher over at Gumption, and today we're going to be going through a food illustration that I'm doing for a book that I'm working on. It's a personal project, personal recipe book of family recipes, and I'm including this because she's part of my market family. This recipe actually isn't a family recipe. I received it last year and it's delicious and I think you might actually like it. So if you're part of my Patreon, you will get that recipe for free. If you're not, well, you get to see the video. For the last 2 summers, I have done our local farmers market here. And last year I was next to a gal in her 80s who every Saturday morning gets up at like 4 a.m. to bake goods to sell at the market. Gracie's her name and baking's her game. She makes flour tortillas, she makes a variety of mini pies, banana bread and all kinds of zucchini bread, those kinds of things. It's pretty phenomenal. And did I mention she's in her 80s? She gave me this recipe. I cooked it 5 times at least during the holidays. So let's get to the painting. I started this illustration actually by baking. So I baked these bars and then I staged a photo shoot so I could have exactly what I wanted in my photo. Next, I opened up my iPad and in Procreate I sketched out this illustration. This is commonly how I create illustrations anymore. I perfect them on the iPad and then transfer them to paper. So here you can see I'm transferring this to my watercolor paper. I printed out my illustration from the iPad and I'm transferring it with pencil. Here I'm refining a little bit and redrawing where I need to do that. I started by painting this plate, but I didn't have the camera going here, but this is a lot of soft colors and subtle shapes. We just want to focus on the pretty colors and I don't want to draw too much attention to the plate itself. Here you can see I'm mixing the dessert color and the pecan color, and I start filling in those pecans. This plate is a vintage plate and it actually has gold along the rim, and so I'm actually using a gold watercolor along the rim here just for fun, because why not? And as you can see, I have a really thin liner brush here, and these are excellent. I wish I'd have discovered them a little bit sooner in my painting career. So here I am putting in the shadows, and you'll notice when I put in these shadows how it really grounds each of these pieces in this illustration. Here I'm using the Sodalite color to create these shadows. And you can see I'm using my reference here, painting in some light blue to create this lid. Gently putting in a really light lavender to give this glass kind of a presence. And again, using Sodalite to represent the metal here. When you look at metal, it often has many colors in it that make up the metal. It's just not all gray. Oftentimes there are lights and darks in there. This nut grinder actually came from my mom's house. When she passed away, decided I needed to have that. She always used it to grind nuts and have them in the fridge for when she put them on ice cream. You'll see me painting over a lot of areas, just kind of glazing and refining. Here I'm using a combination of raw umber, some burnt sienna, and I'm doing a wet and wet technique for the nuts within the grinder. And I was working to get the perfect grain for this 70s nut grinder. If you're a child of the 80s or even 70s, you'll remember these colors vividly. Here I'm painting over the plastic using a light blue color. It's a little bit ultramarine blue. Going into the shadows here of the pecans to give them shape and bring them to life. Adding a little more burnt sienna to make them pop a little bit more. Now we are getting into the base color for the dessert, using the same kind of pumpkin-y burnt sienna color. Kind of warming it up here with a little more pumpkin-y color. Adding wet and wet here to give it a little texture. Some of our nuts have a little darker coloring on the top. Working in the shadow underneath the pecans with a great liner brush. Most of my brushes are actually from Trekell brushes. I think they make a great product and they support artists. Now I'm defining the glass here. There's nothing quite so satisfying as doing a nice thin line with a great brush. And here I'm defining this plate a little bit more. As you can see, I left some white area there to represent the underside of that plate. And the more I'm able to kind of make that shadow come alive there, the more you'll understand that that is the edge of the plate as it curves up. Also, giving a shadow to the dessert itself really grounds it to that plate. And really, when you look at plates, they have different values in different places where the light hits them. So I'm just putting in those darker values. Now I am defining the lid here. The slight shadow of the very top of the lid here. Here I'm using Sodalite. What's nice about using Procreate is making those ovals. They make them perfect, and if you've ever tried to draw the perfect oval, it can be a bit of a challenge. Even here my ovals got a little skewed, but I definitely like drawing them a lot better in Procreate. Here I'm creating depth to this grinder using my Sodalite color. This is a great color from Daniel Smith, and it granulates really beautifully. Giving this glassware a little bit more depth. Going in defining our nuts a little bit more here within the grinder. Working loosely and a little wet and wet. Often for me, watercolor is the act of building upon what has been done before. So I do a lot of layering and working areas, adding colors. You always want to make sure you observe the shadows and represent them where you can. And And as you can see, I keep refining and defining here. This is the pumpkin part of this dessert. Just using some darker paint here to represent the nuts on the top of this dessert. A lot of times in watercolor, your paints will dry lighter than they are when you put them down. I think some brands are more consistent in this than others. I find that Core keeps its color integrity pretty well. Defining the glass a little bit more. And voila, there are pumpkin pie bars. Let me tell you, they are delicious. If you liked this video and had a little fun, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. And if you want to see more of my content, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. You know the drill. And don't forget, if you want to be part of my Patreon to get these recipes, all you have to do is hit the link down below. So thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you being here. I hope you got some value out of today, and enjoy the rest of your day. Go ahead and go paint something and find your creative voice today.